One Punch Man, Chapter 104, Superhuman. So this chapter was fun. It was fine. It wasn't a banger or anything. I don't really think it was intended to be. And I know a lot of us were hoping that it would be Darkshine's turn to step up to the plate, but it looks like One and Murata are saving the big boy for last. And by last, I mean last to take on the rest of the demons, or whatever else before we get to the executives, because at this point, we only have Devil Longhair, Bug God, and the Smelly Lid transformed prisoners left. Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to my thumbnail artist, Quiet Hiss. Please check out our Instagram. She does awesome work and could use your support. And if you liked what you saw in my thumbnail, she also colors panels as well. But aside from that, she's just an overall talented artist in general. So please check out her stuff. So before we get into the meat of this chapter, let me just point out that on the cover page, we see Daedric Genos, our boy that we haven't seen in a while. And I think this is pretty cool that Murata was putting some spotlight on him here. He's kind of just showing us like, hey guys, don't forget that Daedric Genos is a thing now. Yep, he still exists and he will be in this arc. So, if anyone is wondering where he is, well, he is currently at Saitama's apartment. He foolishly went there thinking that Saitama would be there, but of course we know Saitama is in the Monster Association because last time we saw him, he had run into Hellfire and Gale in that awesome comical moment. So when will Daedric Genos be reintroduced into this arc? Well, I have no idea because Daedric Genos, first of all, is not in the webcomic. He doesn't get those upgrades, and also he doesn't go to Saitama's apartment in the webcomic, so his storyline is a complete unknown at this point, so it's really anybody's guess. However, what did happen in the webcomic was the Disciple trio running into Devil Longhair, and the very first interaction between them happens exactly the way it does in the webcomic, and I just love how they just recreated it in the manga. It's essentially like a panel for panel copy, but just done in the awesome Murata style. So we're getting that awesome comical moment with Okama Itachi falling for Devil Longhair. So let's talk about Devil Longhair. So the last time we saw this guy was in chapter 89. That's actually the only time we see him in the entire manga. We're only really getting like 1.5 panels of him, but we're finding out that he's one of the more friendly and sociable monsters in the association. Like, he's talking to like one of the fodder monsters in this chapter, and he's not dismissive of him or anything like that, like what we've seen from the other monsters in the association, especially the demons who are like real stuck up and egotistical, or are kind of just in the association to meet their own egotistical agendas. But we're also finding out that apparently he defeated some heroes off panel, and we're also getting his origin story, surprisingly. So apparently his long hair, which is brown, was his pride and joy, and he became a monster from simple repair and maintenance on it. So we're getting like one of those similar comical backstories to like Crab Blante, you know, one of the classic One Punch Man monster origins. But apparently this guy must have been a beast as a human in general, because he became a demon through monstrification that didn't require monster cells. So him being a demon means that we've got quite the test for the disciples here, because we have to remember that the comparative scale that the Hero Association uses for disaster level demon is 10 A-class heroes or 1 S-class hero. So what we're seeing here is the top 3 A-class heroes taking on a demon, which is a pretty cool test. Because I'm not entirely sure if Devil Longhair is like a high demon. I mean, of course, it can be debated. But based off of his performance in this chapter, I'm going to assume at the minimum he's a mid. But we'll have to see him further in action to really determine if he is a high. But also, if they are able to take him down, that would be pretty damn impressive for the disciples. I mean, it's even difficult for an S-class hero to take down a high demon. But it was also established in chapter 102, or at least the revised version of it, that the disciples are pretty formidable because they were able to hold their own against multiple of Narinki's private squad members wearing the organization suits, which apparently have the ability to bust buildings. So I'm not really sure if they are exactly the same suits that the Paradisers wore back in the beginning of the series, but they do look very similar. And Narinki said he acquired the suits through special means, so it's unsure at this point, but nonetheless, they do say that the suits had a very frightening power, or an impressive power, I'm paraphrasing, but regardless, the disciples have been established to be way above the regular A-class heroes. They're like almost like above A-class, like above Demon. Maybe this just means that the top of the A-class is extremely powerful compared to the rest of the A-class. Very similar to how the top of the S-class is way more powerful than the rest of the S-class. So aside from that, we're getting an official explanation to what Okama Itachi's signature attack, the Air Blade, is, and this is coming from Bushido, who says it's a long-range attack in the form of a huge sickle-like blade of wind created by cutting air. So that was kind of obvious based off of the context, but it's still nice to get an official explanation here. And Bushido even gives credit to Okama for being able to do this technique, which means a lot since Bushido seems to have like a begrudging brother-sister relationship with Okama based off of what we've seen in this chapter. But aside from their whole dynamic, we're further seeing this, which gave them some more character development, which I think is nice because, all the characters should really get character development in this series, in my opinion. But we're seeing that, they have like the begrudging brother-sister relationship between those two, and we see that E-Iron is like the straight man of the three, and he's the one that kind of keep them in check. He's more or less like the one Atomic Samurai appointed to be in charge when he's not around. And speaking of Atomic Samurai, we actually see him in this chapter, which is pretty sweet. We haven't seen him since chapter 95, I think, when they first go down into the Monster Association. So we're seeing that, he's just straight up slaughtering fodder, creating a whole bunch of blood volcanoes, which is pretty cool. But then we're getting a flashback of him when they're all talking about Shibawa's prophecy. And this sequence is pretty much getting the narrative across of like, hey guys, if we're going to be able to pull this one off, we need to go beyond our limits. Like, even me, who is considered to be like a superhuman in this world, I need to even go beyond that. And this further motivates E-Iron to surpass his own limits, because he's like, look, we're only A-class heroes. We're not even considered superheroes or superhumans in this world. Like, I can dodge bullets and cut them up and whatnot, but even that is not considered to be on the S-class level. So if I'm going to be worthy enough to be helping Atomic Samurai out and be even going down into the Monster Association with the Strike Team, we need to push ourselves even further than what is considered to be A-class. So let's talk about the fight for a little bit, because I really like Devil Longhair's fighting style in this chapter. It reminds me a lot of Daffy's Awakened Devil Fruit, the way that it can be both offensive and defensive, but the hair can like clump together and become like these bladed spike-like things that can not only shoot at you on the surface, but they can also travel underground and come out and like sneak attack you and whatnot. This reminded me a lot of what we saw at the end of Dressrosa, but aside from that, it can also spread apart strand by strand and singularly wrap around the weapons and bind them, but it can also bind just you yourself. And this also reminded me of the string fruit. And the disciples are surprisingly able to hold their own against this attack. Like, they're not getting overwhelmed, they're not getting jobbed here. It's a pretty even fight for the most part. I also like the whole sequence where E-Iron's like, close your eyes guys, just attack it, feel the aura of the hair. Like, he almost sounds like Devil Longhair in this moment. Which, let me also mention that like his whole thing is like idioms. But then after the idiom, he'll say like this nonsense idiom that he kind of invented. So the chapter ends when we cut from the fight and we see these fodder monsters blasting one of the heroes. And they're like, oh, did we finish them off? And when the smoke clears, we see that it is none other than Peri Prisoner. Man, I was excited to see him because I like Peri Prisoner. I think he's one of the better characters. I mean, come on. He's got to be a fan favorite at this point. I mean, I think anyone who had a lot of screen time in Season 1 is pretty much captured our hearts at this point. They have become, like, iconic. Like, if you were lucky enough to be in Season 1 and to get more than a couple minutes of screen time, you're pretty much set in stone. So this might mean that the next chapter might be focusing on Peri Prisoner. Like, we might go away from the Devil Longhair fight and see what he's doing, or maybe we'll go back and forth. Not really sure, but I assume that Peri Prisoner is going to eventually run into the transformed prisoners from Smelly Lid. I mean, this is almost guaranteed. They're like put out there for him to do something because in the webcomic, he doesn't really have a lot to do. So this whole plot line was kind of orchestrated just for him. And I'm not complaining. Like I said, I like Pretty Prisoner. I want to see him do more stuff. I want to see him get more powerful. He is a cool character. And let me also point out that he has a pretty dope sweater. Like, I would totally rock this sweater in real life if I could get it. And one more thing before I wrap this up, and I talked about this on Twitter, but I want to talk about it here too. So in the last page of the chapter, when we get a shot of the fodder monsters that were attacking Prisoner, one of them is just a snowman. Like, it's not like a monster or anything. It's just a regular snowman. He doesn't look menacing or anything. Like, what is this guy's story? How did he get down there? Like, what is he doing? Or is this like a little fun Easter egg that Murata put in there? I mean, I know that back in the 200 Yen chapter, you know, the chapter with Saitama when he was a kid, we see that huge demon-level snowman giant monster thing. But this guy isn't like that. This guy actually has like a scarf. And like I said, he doesn't look evil. He doesn't look menacing or anything. He's kind of look like confused. Like, how did I get down here? But I digress. So that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Let me know what you thought about this chapter. Where do you think the next chapter is going to pick up? Are we going to see Pretty Prisoner? And what is the deal with the snowman? Please tell me in the comments, what is his story? And is the next chapter going to expand upon him? I certainly hope it does. I am very interested in that snowman. But if you liked the video, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It starts at $2 and it gives you access to a weekly Q&A. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.